Hey everyone, this is ScrapComputer here. This video is going to be covering surrendering. So we all know what surrendering is, a team forfeiting the game early, resulting in an immediate loss. I'm going to cover the logic of when you should, and more importantly, should not surrender. This is not going to be an anime-based rant where I tell you, shoot for the stars and you can always win in every scenario, because I'm not really like that. This is going to be going off logic and just general outlines of when you should and shouldn't. Now, let's get into it. When to not surrender. So you should not surrender games you can win, duh. Now I start with a little narration of solo queue and surrendering and why you should generally be inclined to not surrender for the most part. Solo queue is unorganized gameplay, that's all I really need to say, and I'll explain why. Since solo queue is unorganized gameplay, people are basically individuals who are running around and saying as an individual what they want to do. So top lane will want to push top lane, mid lane will want to invade their jungle, bot lane want to get the Baron, and because of this, miscommunications and general lack of aims or goals can be basically construed within the enemy team. You can take advantage of this. People will not rotate with the team correctly. You get one person, you catch them out. You get a shutdown off that. Then it's a 4v5 and you force the fight with the enemy team as well. And they're ahead, so they don't really respect this, and you win that 4v5 in turn. You flip the game on its head. We've all had these moments in solo queue. They are literally riddled in solo queue. In professional play, we just don't see these kind of turnarounds very often unless it's a compositional turnaround. We don't actually see people getting picked off because they're all basically talking to each other, describing where they're going, explaining where and how everyone can be or how strong someone is. In solo queue, people always make mistakes. They always make mistakes. They're by themselves. We've got 5 different people, and if one person has got a different train of thought than the enemy team or the ally team, it's basically game over for you because you can pick them off over and over again and force 4v5s. Basically, in solo queue, they also don't know how to siege objectives, or they don't focus on objectives, so you can scale out mid to late game. There are so many reasons why you should avoid or be inclined to just finish off a game rather than just quitting. Due to this, you nearly always have a chance to win in solo queue. I'll now explain the exact scenarios you should never ever surrender in. Your late game composition. This is the most common reason people should not surrender. If you have a Vayne and a Veigar in the same team, hold off that surrender no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're minus 15 to 20 kills down, simply because Vayne and Veigar. Holding off the game and playing safe while scaling with these 2 demons can basically give you a chance of winning at pretty much any point. These champions will eventually be able to take on the entire enemy team. Then when you've good scaling composition, just never surrender. If you have a Jax jungle and he's really ramping up, don't surrender. Anytime you've got any of these or a couple of them, the mid to late game oriented champions, try and basically perpetuate the game onwards. Your enemy team will not be able to end the game, and if they can't end it quick enough, these champions, no matter what, will carry the game for you. If you've got a very good scaling composition, do not ever surrender. Versus a start game composition. Similar to the previous point, if you're versus a start game comp, never ever surrender. I don't care if LeBlanc got 20 kills, do not surrender. So when you're versus a Lee Sin jungle, a LeBlanc mid lane, a Lucian bot lane, hold off and let the normal champions outscale them. These champions fall off in damage, safety, or utility mid to late game. Once the 30-minute mark hits, they're going to become far less effective, and this is going to slant downwards and downwards. So take advantage of this and hold on. Even if they have plus 20 kills, they will outscale you, or at least you can outscale at least 15 of these kills mid to late game. Even if they've got a heavy advantage, it mitigates so many of the kills they have obtained because they're start game champions that it can result in a non-factor, and because you're better mid to late game regardless, you should win the game. The enemy don't have a tank. Now, this is one that not too many people mention, but if your enemy don't have a tank, they have a major weakness in their composition. Basically, I have this saying on stream, no tank, no win. If they don't have a frontline, it doesn't matter how ahead they are, they're vulnerable to being ran over due to the lack of protection. Versus compositions that have no tank, you should have 90% of the time have a better teamfight and disruption. Now, in professional level play, it doesn't matter if you've got a tank in certain regards because they can kite or go a siege poke comp. In solo queue, that's not going to happen, I can assure you. So if the enemy don't have a tank, no matter how far you're behind, basically try and perpetuate on the game long enough and basically outclass them eventually in the mid to late game when they don't have a good team fight. You have a very strong split pusher. If you've got a Fed, Tryndamere, Fiora, Jack, stick with the game no matter what, regardless of how badly the other lane's done. If you're all behind like -7, 8 and you've got a really strong split pusher, they might be able to hold the game to the point where you can start scaling with them. Split pushers can be great tools to stall out games if the enemy don't deal with them correctly. Additionally, they can also single-handedly duel basically anyone sent top lane and will force multiple people to be sent up there, meaning that you can get the dragon, you can go bot lane and get the turret. They basically can extrapolate out a game and pull it out for as long as possible. If you've got a Fed split pusher, it is always worth playing it out. You have a better team fight. If you have a better team fight, you're basically mad to even consider surrendering. If you've got that crazy AoE composition with like the Amumu, Misfortune, Lissandra, Sonic, Gangplank combo, you can win a team fight even -20, -30 kills ahead if pulled off correctly. When you have a good team fight, you should not ever surrender. I don't care if the Amumu is -50, do not surrender, it's still a possible win. Any bronze and silver game. Now this will come across a little insulting, but unfortunately it is the truth. In bronze and silver games, people have only a small idea or no idea how to end the game with objectives. Again, sorry to all the bronze and silver players, but it is the truth. Due to this, you can always stall out a game and basically scale with them, or basically just take advantage of their mistakes. Additionally, bronze and silver games are riddled with people who just get caught out, who try to solo the entire team, make stupid decisions, try and turret dive at really inappropriate moments, or just don't clump together appropriately. No matter how far ahead the enemy are in these games, you can always win because of the general basic mistakes that are made in this division of play. So literally ever surrender bronze or a silver game. You always have the chance of winning due to the amount of mistakes they'll make. You have one AFK. It's very possible to win a 4v5, I've done it countless times and I know most of you guys have as well. One AFK is only 20% of your team's overall strength cut. Hence it is possible to win. In general, when it's 4v5, your team also clump together very well and either generally do really good teamwork or just have an easier time clumping overall. And the enemy team, knowing it's a 4v5, will generally play pretty lax, hence you have a mental advantage. Stick it out and try and play it on, unless of course it gets very late game, then you're probably going to have to lose, but again, try to avoid that surrender vote. Avoid surrendering, period. I wanted to end on this note. You should always avoid surrendering, pretty much always. When you surrendered, you turn a 10-20% chance of winning into a 0% chance of winning. Hell, let's say you're losing heavily, you turn a 5% chance of winning into a 0% chance of winning. This means out of 100 games you're surrendering, let's say on average over these two scores, 10 games. 1 out of 10 games you're basically giving away for free. Games you could have won. You had a chance of winning and you're purposely turning it to 0 when you surrender. Now there are lost games, of course there are. I'm not saying at the point you should never do this, but you always at the point have to say, if this is even slightly possible to win, always play it on, even if there's only a 15-20% victory chance. Still pull it on, you might be able to pull it out of your ass. A game isn't over until it's over. Avoid surrendering at all costs. Times to surrender. These rules come in second to when not to surrender. So if one of the points come from when not to surrender and they overlap with when to surrender, stick with the when not to surrender. Every / most lanes got crushed. When I say crushed, I mean like 0-5, losing by about a power of 2 in terms of CS. When literally every lane has been turned into mincemeat, they've got 3 dragons that pushed all of your turrets, they're taking the last inhibs. This is the time to surrender. Even if you can't leave your base, you can't team fight them or duel a single enemy member, it's more than likely over. I would love to say these games are winnable, but you probably only got about 2-3% chance of winning these ones, and it is probably worth your time to just avoid them overall and move on to the next games, because the minimalistic chance of winning these games is extremely small. If everyone has got crushed and you can't fight and they're pushing off, they get the first inhib and they've shoved into your base, you can't contest them at all really, it's probably time to surrender. When you've lost this badly, do not feel ashamed of that at all. Versus late game compositions and you're heavily behind. When you've lost heavily as well as being versus a late game composition, it's more than likely time to pack your bags. Whenever they're pushing into your base, they've got all of the outer turrets, so you can't even nearly go near them and they're turret diving under them. It's time for the game to end. If you're versus a Jax, Veigar, Vayne composition, you can no longer win fights, you have no one to deal with the duelists, and it's probably game. There's very little mid to late game a Jax, Vayne and Veigar can do to lose the game. If they even play mediocre, they're probably just going to right click and smash on everyone. Each one can take out your entire team. Being versus this many hypers and being this heavily behind will only exacerbate the matter. If your whole team is losing in CS or losing in kills and you're versus a scaling comp especially, you should generally just surrender, pack the bags and go home. You have no tank and you're heavily behind. When you have no frontline to soak up the damage of an enemy that are already ahead, 90% of the time that means you don't have a good team fight as well and no one to protect the already behind backline. When this far behind and having no damage sponge, you can basically be dived easily and you're never going to win any team fights ever. So essentially I would just pack these ones up as well. There's no point in trying to win when you're this far behind in these kind of games. It is a little bit too risky overall. You have 2+ AFKers. If you're not heavily ahead and you've got 2 AFKers, it's pretty much over. You automatically have 40% of your basically overall team strength cut off at the start of the game, which is of course not actually optimal, which means you start off behind. If you were ahead, this puts you back in to the game and are about an even standing, and no matter what you're going to get outskilled because you're versus another 2 champions which are skilling as well. 2+ AFKs is such a low probability of winning, it's probably not worth your time. In summary, there are very few times you should surrender. Surrendering turns a small chance to winning into essentially no chance, which I've mentioned. Only you surrender if there's literally no hope in scaling, compositional, killing your enemy wise, or just in any other way. People use surrender far too frequently, especially mid game when you're on that process and whether you can win or lose. I was in a game a couple of days ago and I had an Amumu who kept surrendering 5 times repetitively through the game. I had to explain to him that we had a better team fight even though we were 20 kills behind and about 200 CS. What do you know, the enemy tried to take our inhib and get a full 5-man AoE wombo combo composition explosion, and we end the game off that because it was 50 minutes in. If there's even a small chance, keep playing and take advantage of the solo queue environment. Try to make picks on people who are defensively and pick them off, or try to go for favourable fights. Always believe the enemy team will get overconfident or just generally get caught out or fight in just unfavourable circumstances. It's always a possibility to win, and always try to avoid surrendering as much as you possibly can. Only surrender if it's absolutely game over and scaling and everything is horrible and there's no way you're realistically going to win. And that's it for the video, guys. If you like it, dislike it, dislike it. If you like the content, subscribe. And if you think it's horrible and I'm totally wrong about this and you should never surrender, you can unsub. I am totally fair. Beyond that, guys, have a great day. Best of luck in the Rift, and I'll see you guys next time.